2025. Fun fact, this time 25 years ago, I got my period. I think I was 10, 11, preteen. I got pretty early compared to a lot of girls I knew. And in 2 days, it's going to be Sandy's birthday. She'll be 4 years old. And I had a bit of a reality check last night, putting the numbers together, because I told myself I'll go after Jordan 5 years and get her back. And I did the math, and she's 4 in a couple days. And 5 years from now, she'll be 9 years old. And it put me into a conflict of, by that time she would have spent so much familiarity and routine with him, and I'd suddenly come in and just take her. And I don't care about Jordan. It has nothing to do with his feelings. It's everything to do about Sandy. And I would have, at that point, it feels like I took someone else's dog. She'd be alive longer with him, and it really shook me up. The I'll get him back fantasy, underdog story where you thought you got away with everything. Well, here I am taking my dog back. It's my dog. She was never given to you. You stole her. I don't care if he would hold himself at gunpoint begging to keep her. If I could take her away, I'd take her back, because that's his lesson. And yeah, I have a lot to meditate about. And I guess a refresher that I'm in a flooded place if I try to recall something, and instead of, for example, the date, as I was saying the date underneath, it's like August. It's not August, but that's the underlay underneath, where every time I'm trying to say something pretty accurate, like in the present, there's a distracting underlay that's going almost consistent, but it's an energy. It's nothing I think deeper about. It's just something I notice, jumbling. I'm really enjoying the dribbling, and a big epiphany I had this morning was I need to create more memories. Regardless of how I feel, I'm still going out there and living. So, for example, traveling to Langley and checking out the Toys R Us there and see what selection they have, and if any of it interests me, or my idea for over the summer, go hiking. There's still Grouse Mountain, there's Capilano College, and this October I'm going to have a bus pass, and it's going to be a lot less stressful to travel. And really reflecting on what I can realistically do, especially when the goal is to get back on my feet. I really, flooding that happens where I'm almost persuaded to overfeel a certain emotion one way when I'm really in the present. I think that's me in that survival pool, where although it feels like it's coming from me personally, it's like a survival mechanic that's just flowing, pushing me in this direction when factually, truthfully, I want to be here. And I think I've been in that state for so long, it feels normal. And that's kind of where I get a little jumbled up on, what do I focus on now? What's the right direction to go? And there's always going to be that innocent part of me that's holding on to Nicodemus, Actress, and Gilligan as these personalities that can return. And truly, it's art. You know? Reclamation's an art. So once I'm able to feel, I can even draw, concepts and, think in 3D, visualize. That's the inner conflict I have to focus on. And feeling part of the world, even if a lot of my even if my existence feels like it's always on the edge of something. And it was a really beautiful back and forth I had last night, where right now I'm in the survival part of my life, where it's that warm static. My favorite example is the ending of Hellsing, where Alucard eats Schrodinger's cat, and he just spreads out. He's no longer there. He's lost in this ocean. And years later, he manages to get back to his master. Oh my gosh, what's her name? Oh no, I can't recall at the second, but he gets there by, I guess, anime, devouring each fake, coming on an encounter with them and arriving victorious. And in my case, I think it's visiting myself and making that exchange, a peaceful exchange. And I think that's where the story of Meat really gets its roots, where Ghost is a spirit. She was a beginning of a very rare breed of spirit that paused and looked back. And I guess in this other world or spiritual realm, I'm still world building, but the concept is there. She's part of this apex tribe. They're superior. They always move forward, and she's, it's like take a prehistoric age where monkeys learned to make fire by bashing something or use hammers by just noticing they could do it. And she noticed, or a particle noticed, they could turn around and just watch. And they noticed there were other creatures, other spirits, and I guess this was where a beautiful symbiosis might have happened, where they turned around and they helped one another. And I guess rather than based on survival, it was more a generosity, a courtesy, a thinking of your neighbor and helping them out, and expecting nothing in return. So this particle just realized, wow, this feels good. I feel warm. And I noticed there was happiness that happened. This other being prospered. And even though they factually didn't lend to the journey, and in fact took energy, because it takes energy to address them. And in a world where energy is finite, we need to conserve. That's what we are as animals. We are very selective. That is a gift. Time is a gift. Spending time on one another is a gift, not an expense, especially when we do it out of choice. And what I really enjoy is Ghost wasn't like a singular character that came out of this. She was a embodiment of particles that liked this behavior, and they continued doing this behavior until eventually a shape came to her. And her special quality is she could travel in the demon realm, because I suppose her herself, being an apex lineage, has that ability. Though she's kind, she doesn't devour, she's not interested in that. And I think, well, juggling on this now because recycling old ideas and making them better, making them tweaked, because not every original spark I have is fully fleshed out. I just think the concept is cool. I think in the beginning, Ghost was more of a ghost that chose not to pass on into the other world. Instead, she stayed behind. And that's a workshopping idea. Maybe she is, and those particles that, embodiment of kindness that doesn't quite have a shape. They saw her, and I guess it's almost like a whisper into her ear, and then she perhaps gains the ability to traverse, and this makes a lot of otherworldly creatures angry, jealous, conceited, because there is a food chain in this other world, and in this world, people who pass away a certain way, and their spirits are food. And it's quite cruel to think that something doesn't have a good ending even as they pass on. And Ghost is that middle ground where, despite not knowing what this person was, she spends time with them and helps them pass on. And I remember Meat was actually supposed to be a game idea I had, where the mechanics are very Undertale-like. You're not supposed to defeat it or fight it, or whittle it down to its lowest HP with special attacks. It was to actually understand what makes them pause, and the optimal ways to make them laugh. It was called Ghost Toast, alright? Ghost Toast, where the idea was you make peace and you toast them, and then they are able to have a peaceful afterlife. And the fun thing about this is Taiga as an additional character in this world, where very much so he's like a fanboy sidekick that was so wowed by her presence, and giving even a demon like him a second chance where he was meant to die. He was part of the most despicable cowards you could think of, and you're not really meant to rejoice his lineage, not meant to look at it and go, oh, he was misunderstood. It was a lineage of behaviors where you would, someone very judgmental from the outside world would go, no wonder, and I'm trying to practice creating a character where they make me feel that way, and where I get to know this character too, story of redemption. And I could always use that as a fulfillment for what if in another life Jordan actually committed to do better? And what if in real life he came back? And I don't think that's healthy. It's not a reflective reality at all. However, I'm backing up here. I lost that train of thought. That was a lot more productive. I recognize why Jordan's a monster. I think that's a better way to start with. Not that I'm fantasizing him coming back and returning everything, but that's actually the tragedy of it. This lineage are people that could have changed their life had they not been selfish. That one point in their life where they were selfish and they chose to be just for Gino from K-pop Demon Hunter. That's a character where his family died as a result of his selfishness. They were left to poverty while he slept in silk sheets in the palace, and he did that willingly. He made that exchange. So Taiga comes from this kind of descent, and I'm trying not to play favorites where, I don't want him to be too much a bad guy. That might be my younger part of me that's like, no, we can't make him too bad, or else he'll be hated. I think making him lead by his actions first, as opposed to this is a character you need to like, because he's still meant to be a deeply flawed character, and his search is for Ghost herself. And I think a really fun detail lately, he befriends a human that is broken apart, has multiple parts of her, and Ghost and Taiga come from the spiritual world where they aren't full shapes, they're a collection of pasts that are put together. And this person, this human, had experienced something devastating in their life, and they shattered. And Taiga's, perspective on it was, you did something incredible. You actually made contact with, something else out there. And this human's goal is to remember who saved her, to find that otherworldly friend. And I like this twist where Ghost isn't actually the only other kind. And of course, Nicodemus Andrews is an inspiration for this, where another from a neutral place that also could make dealings in the underworld and knew how to very differently, charismatically go about a certain way. And it's almost as if workshopping this, he was seen as a shape, a leader, and then he, I guess, disappeared, and nobody can figure out where the hell did this presence go. He was kind of regarded as a mighty human. Like, think of Inuyasha, his dad, his massive force of nature, a powerful demon. Like, that's a high-ranking presence. It's almost like a ruler of the world, or one of them in the territories. And the balance, the ecosystem kind of shifts, and I guess there's that place where, there's a onslaught of demons, like just getting at each other to get to the top. And Taiga, and this is my twist on it to add a little humor, has no idea that this human made contact with something that powerful, that ancient, that eldritch. And my fastest word to that is good fortune. But it's not a demon that wants to enslave you for your gifts. It's a demon that gets to know you and praises you for what you have, so your gifts can show. Much like a director believing in his team, like Walt Disney to reference. And you bring that magic out of them, as opposed to, hey, you want to sing? Here you go. Now you owe me. Like Gino from K-Pop Demon Hunter. And I really like this idea that this breed, this otherworldly predator, this substance, this something, was meant to prey. But it grew tired of doing what it was doing. And I think loneliness, maybe that was the characteristic that came from this behavior, was loneliness. And to feel loneliness adds a dimension of existence. To be lonely is to notice something warm is missing. And I guess Ghost would be generosity, or something that gives second chances, second looks, like stands and looks back and notices someone to hear you, something to see you. And her quality is when she looks at you with the eyes of a dog, like that deep divine looking purely at you. And it's enough to make your soul be moved without so many words. And Ghost is mute. She doesn't speak. She's all action. And Taiga is kind of this big, loud, obnoxious flair to him. He's very much an amateur, and I'm still figuring him out. I enjoy him as someone that is happy-go-lucky. He can take a lot of punches. His is stamina, maybe endurance, where he is a wall and he will be your shield. And because of his own background, I think what motivates him is to do better. because he has experienced shame, guilt. So the act of wanting to redeem oneself is also a noble thing to notice, another dimension of a person where I acknowledge I could have been better, and I want to do good for the rest of my existence. So, where Ghost and Nicodemus are this established, rare occurrences, Taiga is the beginning of one, where he's turning an entire legacy around. And he has a lot more demons and voices in his head. That's something worth mentioning, his own inner demons, because he comes from a place where he could hear all sorts of shame. And to overcome that spread where any desire, anything to gain is the reality, it becomes a temptation. So maybe Taiga's thing is to be loud and obnoxious, and perhaps he avoids sleep, or he needs to be guarded when he sleeps, because he could have one of those demons take over if he's not careful enough. So every time he sleeps is a bit of a massive risk. And I think he enjoys helping other demons. Again, he's inspired by Ghost, who doesn't really have a name. She's nameless. I've just been calling her that. And yeah, I really like it. It gives me peace and something to focus on, especially when it comes to me. I really miss creating. That was my bread and butter. Brainstorming ideas, what cool outcomes, what funny moments could happen, I remember at one time a scenario, the world is ending, we have to unite in every aspect to save the world, and that became too predictable because you knew they would have to work with each other, and there wouldn't be that space to reconcile their differences without that risk of loss, like the build-up. And I like, as I think about this, I say it out loud, the idea that Taiga is at risk whenever he falls asleep. And in order to recover, any kind of being needs to sleep, or else that leads to madness. And I guess that's the cost of him wanting to do better, is he's had this experience of wrong, of treachery, of being something that he only knew to be real for him for the longest time. And now not only does he have to make peace with whatever he might have done, he has to make peace that he's kind of the prince of 1,000 cowards, to put it that way. And I think that's my remark on it. Takes a rare quality for a person to truly look back, to truly go, I have done the most despicable thing. I am going to redeem myself. And to not use those as reasons for why everything sucks, but to see that there is so much to be earned. And I guess Taiga's craving is comfort, and that could be his own flaw, where not every moment he's going to have someone there to cherish him. So he has to build that sense, hold on to that dream. And I guess to take a little bit more inspiration from this past couple years, he's a demon with the imagination to be saved. And I think with his particular arc, it's not meant to be an exchange where if I do this for you, I get to live longer. Like a quota system, quenching thirst. That was a word that was happening underneath earlier. And yeah, I like that I can practice being this way without pigeonholing into myself. You know, I have to act on that first instinct, I have to act on that first oomph. And truly, the journey has been, I have to forgive myself, because my head, the voices in my head, have not been allowing me to rest either. So, you know, Taiga, I guess at this point, is my effort to externalize what it means to reclaim life and come from a background where you didn't do the right thing. And in my case, I didn't stand up for myself. I put other men in front of me. I put relationships in front of me. I buried my anger. And that's the redemption I'm trying to rectify and reconcile. My body has changed because I didn't listen to myself. That Jordan was bad news. And how I word things changes the landscape of everything, because safety, I truly felt he was my soulmate. I can't deny that. And I can't deny that I had been so beaten up by Sean. I've wanted to not allow myself to be trapped again. And I did tell Jordan to go. And then that part of me that questioned, well, maybe I wasn't giving him a chance, when what could have helped was sitting on it for a few weeks and really listening to that part of me, that, you know, I guess that far away me, that in another room going, hey, this is a bad idea, listen to yourself. And I filled in that space with comfort, feeling needed. And I can see the beginnings of how Taiga is an expression of this. What I said earlier about his flaws, while he's on this noble, lonely journey, there's no one on the other end to cherish him. Not always. And that's difficult, because to belong, to feel needed, is a need. I've witnessed that. My life is a big, disastrous journey of going from one point to another, feeling useful, feeling like I make a difference, feeling that I can make a difference in someone else's life. And that strangely became the goal, when my first goal to begin with was my own self, learning, the thirst to create. Like that was only able to see out just a little bit in slivers of my entire life. And I honestly, the last time I saw it peeking out was during math in Jeff McCandless's class. And I was so moved when he said math was about space and the things inside of it, as opposed to, well, individual things. It was accounting for everything and then noticing what's inside. And, you know, as I say this, the magic of that moment isn't present. And I want to develop a language where it's in storage. And as I'm feeling this out, workshopping like I just did with Ghost Toast or Meat, whatever I say isn't final. It's exploration. Even if I feel pretty put together in moments, reaching back and being my full me, you know, my essence, my collective experiences that I can draw from isn't always available. And the fear of researching more about dissociation to a point where it dismantles my inner world. You know, reality I lived with Nicodemus Sanchez and Damien and Kiva and Uncle and feeling that connection with, there was something out there that reached in so quietly, so deeply, and I was moved. A non-believer like me actually believed. I couldn't deny it. And then something else, other parts inside of me, just witnessed to the nth degree. And I have a feeling I'm just at the tip of something, a rediscovery, and things I've yet to learn. And Sandy Moosman is always that voice of kindness, to be open to learning something I never expected, to hear from myself, from my insides, from other parts of me. And this confusing balance I'm in right now, where I'm not trying to let my emotions or voices act as vessels for what's best for me in the moment. I'm just noticing that spread where it's feelings, and the journey of once upon a time, and even the journey of how to see the self from a certain perspective, and I guess experiencing them in a singular way. And you learn something and then you come back from it. And the best example I could think of is Jordan Peterson's, going into hell, tending to the shrapnels in your soul and then resurfacing. And it's the most painful, loneliest journey it could possibly do. And my loneliness is, will there be anyone that will remember me? Because I have so few witnesses that actually know me. I have Charlie Richards, I have Jacob Croft, Danny Gosselin, Josh Hardy, Leon Livingston. And, there's still neighbors. I haven't made a connection with anyone beyond Danny Gosselin to my lived experience that saw me laugh, connect, have interest, show things. Because all my looking was in really toxic, one-sided relationships that I know now. At that time, I was erased. I was replaced. I shape-shifted into whatever they wanted. And Sandy Moosman's kindness to always stop this overthrowing of, I am so disgusting, I let that happen, and more listen to yourself. What had they helped you with? What just mercy, mercy in the kindest way, and to really understand the word cherish, because to cherish is to love something despite every scar they have, and to fucking stop at the reflex of seeing Jordan there, seeing Sean there, seeing Gary there, seeing every other possible person there, and what would it look like for them? What does it look like for me? Because I used to reflect and compare so much just to get a basic understanding of the world and how to behave. This is the first time where I have to really look at me, and my spreads happen when I start to question, could I have done better? And I guess that's the first time I'm really identifying regret. And it is so spread out. Anything, any hair trigger makes looking at that from that lens branch into a horrible feeling. And I think that's where grief sits. And right now I'm rediscovering, from a blank place, what that looks like again. Because all the experience to understand grief is necessary, that grief is part of the human condition, that grief is meant to sob for loss. And I have a lot of loss. I had a lot of expectation of my capacity, capabilities to, really keep running. And the one with Sandy, collecting her in 5 years. And 5 years from now, she's going to be 9 years old. And at what point do I let that go? Like, truly go? I'm not in any position to even fantasize that. I like the idea of it. Right now, I don't have a job. I'm barely able to retain things in college, even with my heart writing it. And to sit with myself, to hold myself, because waiting for that ideal jumping off point where I feel better enough now to do the next obstacle, the next challenge. The sad reality to this is, as long as I can continue getting money from my mom, and I'm going to bring her as much as I can for as long as I can for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, if possible. Because right now I really need to be with myself. I need to hold me. Hey, first day brainstorming character stuff. That's awesome.